Thank you, Aisha. How y'all doing? Good morning, my young kings and queens. Hope you're having a blessed morning. I know y'all probably wondering who I am, what I do, and how I kind of even got up here. So to get into that first, actually, you guys have a real great teacher, Aisha, who cares truly about y'all, believes in y'all, and really wants all the best for y'all. So she saw my work, she seen the message, she appreciated it, and she reached out to me and said if I would be willing to come speak with y'all, and share a little bit about myself with y'all. And I said most definitely. So to kind of get into who I am and how I got to where I am today, I just want to say this, I didn't get where I'm at today because I'm perfect. I got here because I was able to survive, my own mistakes. So before we even go on, you see, my name is Jason Abreu, and I got two numbers here, two set of numbers. This is who I was known as, 16R3172 and 21R0430 from the years 2016 to 2023. So, by any chance, just to ask out there, does anyone know what are these numbers that I just mentioned right there?
Yeah. What's cool? That's the numbers they gave you when we gave the book.
Exactly. These are both my all right, Brandon. Yeah, you're definitely right. Those are actually my inmate numbers. They're known as DIN numbers, Department Identification Numbers. When you get booked, and then after you get sentenced, you go to court, you fight your case, you end up getting called with a DIN number. So from those years, I wasn't Jason Abreu anymore, because when you're in that prison setting, your whole identity, it gets stripped from you. That's who you become, and that's who they refer to. You get demoralized of your character, of your whole identity, and wherever you go throughout the whole jail, throughout the compound, everybody refers to you as a number. Now, I have to be real with all of y'all here. Back then, if you would have asked me if I would ever end up in prison, I would have to say, hell no, no way. Yet alone twice. I went away 2 times, I went away to do a 4 flat, 5 posts in 2016, came back out, thought I had it all figured out, and 18 months later, I ended up reoffending. But before we even get into how I ended up in prison and certain other situations that happened in my life, which actually led me to change, to actually choose myself, put myself first, and accept growth in my life, I want to tell you a little bit about where I'm from and my upbringing. I'm from right here, Dyckman, born and raised, Dyckman projects, my whole life. I'm the youngest of 4 siblings, and I have to be honest. Like I said, I never saw myself going to prison. I actually was fortunate enough to have a real beautiful upbringing. We were born and raised in a tiny apartment in the projects, building 5, but my parents made it happen. Actually, growing up, I had dreams of being a lawyer my whole life, and it's funny that I share that with y'all, because here I am. I had dreams of becoming a lawyer, of practicing and exercising the law, and I actually went from that to having the law judge and prosecute. But that's all right. I'm not ashamed or embarrassed to share the mistakes I made on my past with any of y'all here, because if there's one thing that I've learned, is that our past doesn't define who we are. Last time I checked, ain't nobody in this world perfect. We all make mistakes. What matters is the rebound, the comeback, what you learn from those mistakes, the lesson. Whether you choose to stay stuck or you choose growth. I chose growth, and I chose change. So trying to kind of dive in how this came about. I graduated high school, All Hallows High School, right in the Bronx. Went on to college, graduated college. 2008, I ended up losing my job. So, I had an opportunity offered to me if I actually wanted to be a promoter. Back then, I used to really like going out a lot, partying, clubbing. Someone suggested to me, hey, listen, you like going out a lot already. You like partying. Why don't you promote and make some money while you party? So to me, in my head, I said, man, partying, get my dance on, my drink on, why not? Let me give it a try. Something that started off as was going to be a side hustle, it took off for me, and that's when this character was born that I started to identify myself with, which was Jason, I Party Hard Entertainment. At this point, I became a full-blown promoter. I was promoting about 4 parties weekly, some of the hottest events in the Uptown Bronx area, even downtown. did some parties in Miami. And though at the time I seemed like I was having the time of my life, little did I know that I was actually setting myself up for failure. Because being in that nightlife scene, in that atmosphere, I was introduced, to things and people that I was never really introduced. And like they say, curiosity always kills the cat. So being in that setting, one thing led to another. People started coming to me, asking me if there was some way that I could facilitate, certain, certain drugs for them. So back then I seen it as innocent. I'm like, you know what? I'm partying, I'm doing my parties, I'm making money. Why not make some little extra money, right? Now, one thing I've learned throughout my whole journey is that when you slipping up and when you going left, God is always going to try to give you the signs so you can, catch them and try to get back on that straight line. But sometimes it's not that we don't see the signs, we're just not ready to accept them. And we're not ready to change because we caught up, in what we're doing. And we live in the moment. Back then, I felt, I was on top of the world. I was the man. Everybody knew Jay, I party hard. I had the hottest parties in Dyckman. I had the hottest parties in the Bronx. I had some of the hottest parties downtown. So to me, there was nothing that nobody could tell me. And with that came my ego, Now I felt like I was somebody. I had a name, I had a name to protect. And being in this scene, like I said, I'm looking at it as innocent fun. The first intervention that happened to me was in March of 2014 when I was in a very bad car accident and I broke the right side of my hip. I had they put screws, a whole metal plate, and you would think this was gonna slow me up. It didn't slow me up. 2 weeks later, after some physical therapy, I was right back in the clubs, back to what I was doing. Partying, hustling, drinking, ain't nothing that nobody could tell me. Fast forward the tape, this was a big one. This was the one where everybody thought I was really gonna, chill the F out and take it cool, and it actually wasn't. November 8th of 2014, I ended up getting shot, actually leaving at after hours. I got shot. I actually died in front of my parents, and the paramedics actually had to shock me and resuscitate me to bring me back to life. And I know you guys all probably wondering the same question that everyone asks me. Well, why did you get shot? What happened? Something must have happened. And I'll tell you, it's real simple. I know we all heard of you at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was my scenario. Not only was I in the wrong place at the wrong time, I was with the wrong crowd, A week prior to me getting shot, to me getting hit, I had a big Halloween party at one of the venues, and some cats that I was with, that we were sharing the same table, some innocent fun. They ended up getting in a situation at the end of the night. They got into some real bad beef in front of the clubs, shot right off, dudes got shot. I didn't have nothing to do with this situation. While all this commotion was going on, I was actually inside the club trying to get everything situated. But when you roll around with certain crews and certain individuals, the streets ain't asking if you had anything to do with it. You're gonna get labeled as part of that crew, you're an affiliate. So that whole week, people had kind of told me and given me the heads up, like, yo, that situation that happened outside the club, dudes ain't letting that go. They trying to make something happen. I wasn't trying to hear that because, like I said, in my head, I'm like, I ain't have nothing to do with it. They didn't think of it like that. They seen me. They seen those dudes that we was on the same table. That night, I left my party, went to an after hours. On my way home, right on 158th and Edgecombe, as I'm exiting the cab, I start hearing shots going off. Bah, bah. I get to the front of my wife's crib. Mind you, she lives in a corner like this, so there's no way for me to run. Now I'm hearing shots ricocheting off the wall. When I turn around, there's a dude like 10 feet away from me with a hoodie on, taking licks at me, taking shots. Just as my wife opens the door and I'm about to go in the door, I end up getting hit on my lower back by a 22 or small bullets, which are very dangerous because these bullets travel all over your body. So sure enough, I pass out, and I just remember waking up with my stomach open, and I saw the light. I have to tell you the truth, and I guess it wasn't my time. God wasn't done with me and I wasn't done with my work on this earth. And you would have thought, like, damn, you just got shot, you just died in front of your parents, you're gonna slow the F up. And I did it. Now my ego was on, if my ego was on 100 before, my ego was on 1,000 now. Because now I feel I'm invincible, I'm untouchable. Y'all try to take me out, y'all hit me, and y'all failed. I'm still here. And that's how I kept running with it. So again, it was God trying to give me the interventions, trying to give me the signs like, yo, listen, you moving too fast. I wasn't trying to hear none of that. Fast forward the tape, 2015, October 15th, that's when I ended up getting arrested for the first time. I don't know what's going on. They ambushed me, they checked my apartment. You know, they break down my parents' door, which is very, very, humiliating for my parents to have to go through that. And when they take me to the precinct, little do I know, I got hit with a 100-page indictment. So now I'm facing charges for allegedly running a street team that was peddling drugs inside the clubs or whatnot. I sat up from October 1st to October 20th, waiting to get bail. Again, the sense of invisibility. I was so used to getting into situations and getting out that I never seen what was coming, which was this, 2 state bids. I didn't see it. I was so used to getting out of my situations, I thought I was invincible. I end up bailing out 3 weeks later, and while I'm out on bail, a few months passed. In May, I go with one of my mans, for a simple ride. They like, yo, come with me, I gotta go do something. I just went for a ride, right? He was handling some other business, and right here, not too far on 188th and off the avenue, when we get there, one of our other men that's in the car with us, he gets out the car to do something, to bust a leg, to do what he gotta do. We get ambushed by the cops again. Here we go again. I'm back in handcuffs. They take me back to the precinct. They give me a $100,000 bail. I bail out again. I don't care. I'm chasing our party hard. I'm invincible. Can't nobody tell me nothing. I got the money to bail out. I got the money to pay lawyers. I don't care. This is what I'm thinking at the time. I bailed out, and then, my lawyer had told me already, listen, you out on bail from a previous case that you still fighting. Now you got caught up in another situation, and even though you had nothing to do with you, this was your man's situation, you're getting charged for this. So you're going to be looking at more time now. When we go back to court, chances are that they're going to want to remand you. They're going to want to keep you there. And sure enough, that's what happened. I went back to court about 5 weeks later in June, saw the judge. The prosecutors told him, like, Your Honor, listen, this man, we asking that we take his bail away. He's out on a prior indictment. He just got hit with another charge, and that's when the lights was off. There was no more fun and games. It was no more Jason, I party hard. I had to sit up and write this for about 5-6 months, fighting my case. Fast forward to tape, November 2016, I end up going to court, and I end up getting sentenced to 4 years. 4 years incarceration with 5 years post, which I have to say, I have to share this with all of you here. That was by far probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, have to get sentenced with my mother and my father sitting in that courtroom, But at the same time, it was also a learning experience for me because it taught me one thing. When you're in the streets, excuse my language, and shit starts to go left, the streets don't love you back. Because when I look back in that courtroom, it was none of the homies that was with me, that I used to be out here trying to seek validation and try to make it seem like I was the man, like I was him. Ain't none of them was in that courtroom with me. None of them shorties that I was out here blowing the bag, that I used to be dissing my wife before, the one who was holding me down, and I was tripping on them. Ain't none of them was in the courtroom with me. They was gone, like this. We all heard Meek Mill when he said, when the handcuffs come on, they gone? Yeah, they gone. Just like that. I end up getting sentenced. I go to do my time. Now I'm up north. The whole time I'm up north, right? And just to kind of give you an idea of this experience, it's the most dehumanizing, degrading experience that any of us here, any human being in the world could put yourself in. I don't want to hear it. It's like you have the level of respect that they give you in there is like there's no words to explain it, But again, I get through my bid, I do the full flat, I come home, March 27, 2019. The whole time while I'm incarcerated, I'm telling myself, I'm never going back to the things that I was doing. I'm gonna stay focused, I'm gonna do my thing, I'm gonna do it the right way. I come home, unfortunately, 18 months later, I reoffended. I reoffended because I relapsed. I came home, I actually started working in a restaurant, washing dishes and everything. I was doing it right, but you know what? I wasn't used to that slow process, to that slow progress. I was used to that fast money, fast life. So you know what? Part of me, I'm like, nah, I can't do this. I went back to the same toxic environment, the same toxic people, places, and things that led me to get incarcerated the first time. I went back to the clubs. I started promoting again. I was Jason, I party hard, all over again. So one thing led to another. From the partings came the hustling again. And then this is the part that really hurt. When I got picked up October 2nd on new charges, on a whole new indictment, on drug conspiracy charges now, I had no clarity what was going on. I didn't know what this was hitting for. They came to pick me up like 10 DEA agents. They threw me in a van. They walking me out the crib like I'm in a chopper, like I'm the biggest criminal in the world. So I don't know what's going on. I'm just butterflies in my stomach. I'm nervous. They end up bringing me to the precinct in Kingsbridge. I see some of my co-defendants there, some of my guys, and mind you, it was 2020, so the whole world was paralyzed. This was COVID. The courtrooms weren't even open or nothing. So when they end up bringing us to the courthouse right here in the Bronx, there was nobody there. The whole time, the cops, they trying to gas it up like, yo, let's get y'all to court because the judge is probably going to let y'all go without bail. I knew that wasn't happening because I was still technically on parole. When you do your bid, you have to come home and you still owe the state what's called post-supervision, parole. So I knew this wasn't happening. I knew the cops were just trying to, 48 me and try to make me, put a smile on my face. I knew what it was heading for. Sure enough, I go see the judge. I still don't have no clarity what's going on. And when my lawyer at the time, the court-appointed lawyer, was trying to fight to get me a bail, the prosecutor interjected and said, Your Honor, we can't give this individual bail because besides the fact that he's already out on parole, he's currently on post-supervision, we not only observe, but we have him under surveillance, throwing a narcotic substance in the trunk of an undercover. When I heard that, I put my head down. I was speechless. You know why? Because now things start making sense. And I start making sense of the situation. And the whole individual that set that whole situation up, that orchestrated that whole thing, was my main man, my homie. Someone I've known for over 12 years. And that's what's going on right now in the streets. In case nobody knows or might be unaware, that whole loyalty, that's all a myth, man. Ain't nobody trying to do time here. I'm going to put it like this. You ask any person in jail right now, any person in prison, 99.9 of the people incarcerated, they are not there because the cops is doing good work. They're not there because the cops is doing good work. They're there because he, her, she, him, they all telling. Everybody's telling out here. And that's what's going on. People act tough. They want to give this image. But when they in front of the judge or they get pulled to that room, man, they tell you see, you got fathers telling on their kids nowadays. You got kids telling on their parents. You know what I'm saying? You got the biggest of the biggest narcos dudes out here, telling on each other. And that's what comes when you sign up with the whole street things, which is why I'm out here sharing my story. And I'm not going to lie, I don't got to sugarcoat this to none of y'all. When I heard that betrayal, it hurt, man. It hurt like an open wound. I couldn't fathom it. And at the time, I want to say probably through the beginning of my incarceration until I started seeing, making the changes that I needed to make and really putting my whole life into perspective, my mind was on a whole different time. I wanted revenge, I wanted to make calls to this town and start saying and orchestrating stuff. Like, yo, such and such told on me. He did bad. But you know, at that time, what seemed to be the worst thing that could have happened to me going back to prison actually turned out to be the best thing ever. And today, I've learned to actually thank that individual that did me the favor. And one thing I had to do, which was hard, but I knew I had to do it for me and my family, I forgave that individual. I had to. And that's one thing that, I want to share with you guys here. Nowadays, we living in a world where it's gotten normalized that any form of little disrespect, any situation, you gotta take it there. And I'm here to tell you, you don't gotta take it there. Because walking away and forgiving, contrary to what other people might tell you, that's not weakness. That doesn't make you soft. Walking away, is actually powerful because it means you chose you and you chose your future. So I had to deal with that myself internally. Because if I didn't forgive this individual, I knew that I was gonna come out and do exactly what the system wanted me to do. I was gonna crash out. I was gonna seek revenge, and I was gonna be back up north for a third time, or even worse. I was probably gonna be in the feds doing 20 years, or I was probably gonna be dead, because that's what comes when you go tick for tack. I would have came back, I would have gotten my lick back, they probably would have came and got their lick back from me, and it's just it's a non-ending cycle, and that's what I'm here to talk to all of you about, This is a cycle that's going on nowadays, and it's, it's very saddening and unfortunate, but like I said, it did turn out to be the best thing, because while I was incarcerated, I was able to find, my purpose, my movement, which is this, Made Up North, off the counter, making it count. I have a whole movement and mission that's dedicated on helping returning citizens rebuild their lives after incarceration and stay home, and most importantly, also, to try to reach the youth before the system could ever claim them. I have a 15-year-old son myself, which sadly, out of the 15 years that he has on this earth, I wasn't present for, I want to say 7, 8, about half of those years, because of the poor choices that I made that came with those consequences, which was that I ended up, being incarcerated. So like I said, you might be going through certain situations in life that you might question, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? But sometimes your worst thing that you think in your head might actually turn out to be the best thing. So me going back to prison the second time actually saved me. And that's like what I said in the beginning and emphasized. It's not about the mistakes we make, because ain't nobody in this world perfect, It's how do we bounce back from it, And I'm not here to preach. I'm not here to tell nobody what to do. I'm not here to give nobody a stay in school speech. I'm just here sharing my story, giving y'all some insight, and hopefully y'all take something from it, because, like I said, your teacher definitely cares a lot about y'all. She's seen my work and she's seen my message. And through my platform, I always try to, discuss a lot of topics, current topics going on, to try to bring awareness and try to educate the youth, because y'all see what's happening, 17-year-old killing another 17-year-old, young brothers getting sentenced to 20, 25 years, and it hurts, man. It hurts, man. One situation I want to point out that it happened, it's recent, and I actually made a few videos about this, because it really hurt me, is, seeing that young brother pay flock getting sentenced to 25 years. That hurt me right here. Young, very talented young brother. That right now, he should be ready. He should have been getting ready to tour the world, to perform, and to be taking care of his family. And unfortunately, he's getting ready for another type of tour now, to be all over the prison system, because that's how the prison system plays, especially in the feds. They'll leave you here for a month, then they'll send you to Virginia to do 2-3 years, then they'll send you to Alaska, then they'll send you to Arkansas. They don't care. They don't care. Once you're in their control, they don't care about you. But the thing that really hurt me the most, why I wanted to, speak on this situation. When you get sentenced in front of the judge asks you, are there any last words that you want to say? And the young brother actually raised his hand. He said, yeah, I have a few things I want to say. And he told the judge, listen, I can own up to what I was doing. And I can tell you now that throughout the time that I've been incarcerated, I've had time to learn and rethink and really reevaluate my life. And I know I was living a destructive lifestyle, and he was telling the judge this. And you know what hurt me? He told the judge, I changed, and I believe it. I know that young brother's saying the truth, because I know if there's one thing that's possible, is that change is possible, because I'm living proof of that. I wasn't supposed to be man up here speaking to you guys. People counting me out. I got 2 bids, shot, near-death experience, best friends turning to enemies, turning on me, betrayal, everything, all of that. But I changed. So I know that young brother was saying the truth. But you know what the judge turned around and told him? I appreciate your words here, but honestly, I'm on a mission to prove, to make an example of all RICO and gang cases. And he gave the young brother 25 years, man. That hurts, man. Nobody over here, nobody here, none of y'all here. I just wanted to say this, man. Put yourself first and put, your future first. And when you choose you, or you say no, or you walk from a situation, which is why I wrote this formula right here, which I learned actually through my incarceration. My bunkie, a brother who was never coming home, he already had been down like 12 years. I had got into some situation in jail. I got a bad phone call. I can't recall. I just remember I was ready to blow the spot, get into some situation, physical situation. The old timer pulled me to the spot. He pulls out a pen and paper. And he writes an I over E. He's like, yo, young blood, listen, I know I see you, and you about to make something happen that's gonna send you to the box, or they might end up adding more time to your prison sentence. So I just want to share something with you, and hopefully it can get to you. And I want to share this with y'all. I over E. You know what that means? I'm like, nah, what does it mean? He's like, well, the I is intelligence, and the E is your emotion. And what I'm trying to tell you is never let your emotions supersede your intelligence. Because when you do that, 5 minutes of anger could cause you your whole life. So sometimes, no matter how big of a situation is, you just gotta walk to your quiet space, put yourself in your zone, and just check yourself and ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth it what I'm about to do? Is it worth me giving 20, 25 years of my life? Or even worse, is it worth me ending in a cemetery? And while you asking yourself these things, also try to kind of think and consider and be mindful of the fact that through your absence, it's not you that's only going to be affected. And this used to be my case. My first day, I'll be honest, I'll own up to it. I was selfish. I made it about me. I was stressing the time that I was losing. I was stressing the fun that I was missing out on. I was stressing everything. It was all about me, right? But this is what happened. When I come home, I started noticing, take a look at my parents' condition. My mother today has full-blown dementia, which only progressed throughout my second incarceration. So my mother, she can't even really understand and see all the good things and positive things that I am doing now because of her condition. So it was right here in this moment that I said, yo, I was selfish, man. I'm stressing about me, and granted, prison is the worst place that any human being could be in. But once you're in that setting, you have no choice but to adapt. You start surviving, you start living, you get into a routine. But for people out here, they do time double because they gotta stress and worry about your well-being while you're away, and they gotta stress and worry about how they're gonna make ends meet out here without you. So think about those things whenever you're in a situation, that might lead you to, end up in prison, God forbid, a cemetery. Just ask yourself, is it worth it? Because 5 minutes could really, lead up to that. And like I said in the beginning, when I started speaking to you guys, that indeed, from those years, that's who I was known as. 16R 3172 and 21R 0430. But today, as one of my favorite rappers, Jay-Z, said, allow me to reintroduce myself. I'm Jason Abreu, a prison reform advocate, a credible messenger, a youth mentor, founder and host of the Off the Count podcast, or author and a leader who chose growth over excuses, So that's kind of a little bit about my story, what I do, and my whole mission, and what my whole movement is about, and before I kind of open up the floor for some
Can I just
questions.
say something?
Yes.
And just, I think why God gave him a second chance and probably a third chance is because God wanted him to be here, speak to you. So you guys will make the same mistake.
Absolutely. I agree. That's like I said, that's why, what's the best thing. At the time, it seemed like the worst, but it was the best thing because I'm not going to say I feel. I do know that today, God uses me as a vessel to do this. And I just wanted to make that clear. Like I said in the beginning, I didn't come here to judge nobody. I'm not here to tell you, yo, stay in school, I'm not here for none of that. We are all our own individuals and we are going to make our own choices. I just wanted to come share my story, give some insight, and hopefully you guys can take something from it. One last thing I want to do, also share with you, is a formula of success that I go by with. And I was able to, this is something that I learned and made in my formula for success because when I went away the first time, came back out and reoffended, and when I went away the second time, I was really able to put my whole life into perspective. And I told myself, what were some of the things that I did versus some of the things I didn't do my first incarceration, with my second incarceration. And I thought about it and it hit me, and 3 things that I lacked the first time is this. My formula for success, FDP mindset. You gotta apply this every day from the moment you wake up. Focus, discipline, patience. The first time I lacked all these 3 things. I lost all focus, all that whole working out. I was fit throughout my whole bit. I came out looking good. 18 months later, I had gained 40 pounds again. So I lost all discipline. And as I was working this job in the kitchen, instead of giving myself the time to actually grow, until I leveled up into a better position, I wasn't trying to hear that. I had no patience. I was off to the races again. So these are the 3 components that I apply on a daily basis, and I can tell you firsthand, thank God they've been working for me amazing, I just finished parole in March. I was able to successfully finish parole when I came out this time.
Thank you, Isaiah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, brother. I came out, finished parole, and I was actually working at my man's restaurant in Dive Bar. And I'm gonna be honest with you, man, I'm even getting goosebumps and reminiscing, thinking about this. It was uncomfortable for me at first, and that's something though that I'm gonna tell you. Sometimes you gotta get used to being uncomfortable to get comfortable, Cause it was uncomfortable for me, man. Everybody knew me as Jay, as Party Hard, as the promoter, as the plug. That's how they knew me. He a plug, yeah. If I still promote? Nah, I don't promote no more. I don't promote no more, I barely even be out of the nightlife scene anymore, like I know what comfort, to each his own, I don't knock nobody, wanna go out, chill, cool, but that ain't me. But what I'm saying, I went from a place, that I'm known as the main man, everybody calling me to get to my parties, to reserve tables, this, that, and the third, to now, I'm working in a restaurant, cleaning tables, cleaning bathrooms. Sometimes they hear me on the radio. Yo, come to the bathroom, somebody vomited. I'm running there with my little, rag. But I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It was a humbling experience. And if it wasn't for that experience prepared me for everything that's happening in my life. Now, you know how they say, stay down until you come up? I applied these things right here. And I gave myself patience because I knew that wasn't going to be the end for me because I wanted more for myself, for my family, and I knew that I deserved it. And I knew that my parents deserved it. The same way I let them down, getting sentenced in that courtroom, now once but twice, I had an obligation to make things right. So sure enough, I locked in. I started taking several exams, several tests. I got all my certifications, my 62 hours SST card, and today I'm actually a site supervisor for a general contractor, you know? So I'm doing real well, you know? And, you know, in the midst of that, I said, I'm not stopping here because now I'm on a mission. I have my movement, made up north, off the count. You know, this is not for clout. This is about really trying to help individuals come home because I can tell you firsthand, when people get released from prison, it's not that we don't come out here with the right intentions. A lot of us actually do come out here wanting to do better, to be better and progress in life. But sadly, we are living in a world where we get little to no real support, right? And we have to deal with the, people passing judgments on us, the labeling, oh, you're a convict, you're a felon. But through my movement, I'm looking to break all of that. I'm about to launch my nonprofit Inmate, Off the Count Foundation. And in the midst of me busting tables, cleaning bathrooms, getting myself ready for that job, I started brainstorming and organizing myself to put together this book, which I just released October 14th. The reason why I released it October 14th, this day is special for me, is because that was the day I got released from parole. And I told myself, I challenged myself. I'm like, listen, before I leave parole, the day I walk out of those gates, right there in Jamaica Avenue for my parole office, I want to make sure I leave something behind for all those returning citizens who are trying to rebuild their lives, you know, who are trying to make that successful reentry and avoid the same trap that I fell into, which is recidivism. Recidivism, in simple terms, is when you get released from prison and you end up relapsing to criminal addictive behavior, which only leads you going right back to prison. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna make sure I leave something the day I walk out of parole. And I did that. And this book is not just for people coming out of prison. It's for anyone who's trying to, rebuild and transform their life from the bottom up. 15 chapters, short chapters, practical, and each chapter I end with what I call a comeback challenge. Because this is not a book that you just read through. It's a book that you actually work through. So each chapter has a little exercise, a comeback challenge to get you thinking. And I know I mentioned the power of walking away and having to say no. Just to briefly go into a quick chapter real quick, Chapter 1 is identifying triggers, because I feel the best type of preparation for any battle, any war you're going against for is to be ready, Be ready, stay ready so you don't have to be ready, like I said. And like I said, working in this scene, a lot of people that knew I was back out here, they used to pull up on me over there in the restaurant, hit me with the, yo, welcome home. But after that, came the other question, yo, you still hustling? You still trapping? You still got this for the low? Those questions came, and I knew I had to make a decision right there. I'm like, listen, I could either, jump real quick and get back to it and think all that quick, fast money, or I'm gonna stand on business. And I made a choice right then and there to tell them, nah, I appreciate you checking up on me, but that's not me. I'm not involved in that life. And I walked away, and honestly, walking away and saying no and shutting down those individuals, letting them know that I was out the game, I wasn't hustling no more. That's when I really regained my power back, because I was able to really look at myself in the mirror and really be comfortable with the person who I am today, But with that being said, I just want to say thank you again before I open up the floor for some questions to your amazing teacher who reached out to me. And I want to give a copy of my book, a signed copy, thank you so much for bringing me here today. And thank you guys, man, for listening, man. I truly appreciate you. You guys were great. And if you guys have any questions, anything you want to talk about real quick before we conclude, I'm all open to any questions.
How were you when you first got booked?
I was actually like 31 years old. I wasn't even young, I'm glad you asked that question because, I always tell people prison doesn't discriminate. It don't matter if you're young, if you in your 30s and your 40s. I was been with dudes as early as 16 years old, as old as 70 years old, man. And, yeah, it's sad too, man. That be the worst when you see all these individuals who are old already, dudes in cane doing bid. The system does not discriminate. If you break the law or if you make a mistake and it comes with consequences, they're gonna make sure they get their time, And I could attest to that because that's what happened with me. Since I got rearrested the second time and I was out on parole, when I went up north, I found out a bitter piece of news that shut me down. The time that I had just copped out on my second case, all that time that I owed from my first case on parole, they put it together. So the second time I copped out to a 3 flat, thinking I came off, that 3 flat turned into like a 5 flat, almost 6 flat, because they added all that time. So it's a never ending cycle with these people. Best believe they're gonna make sure they get every day of their time. Yes?
Do you miss it?
If I miss what? The life? No, that's a good question. What's your name? Later? All right. Nice to meet you later. What's your name? Rose. All right. Nice to meet you. Sometimes that whole nightlife, yeah, the going out, I catch telling my friends sometimes I miss it, going out, but then I look back at everything I have and what I've been building. I just had a beautiful baby girl. She just turned 6 months. Yeah, thank you. She's the cutest, man. So I just look at her, I look at my 15-year-old son, and I say, I wouldn't trade this to go back to that for nothing because I lived it already and I know what comes with that, Anything else? Any other questions? My young kings, my young queens, any other questions? All right. I'm actually gonna see if I'll send a few copies over here so they could actually have a few copies here on stock. That's me here. That's a picture of my inmate ID. I figured I use that picture, to make it more real. So when the person behind the wall, the person incarcerated reading the book, or even now, that y'all taking a look at the book, y'all can see, this is not somebody just talking to talk. This is somebody, y'all laughing at my mugshot? Laughing at my mugshot was a little bit rusty, right? They don't got good barbers in jail, man. They don't got the ball. Nah, but honestly, man, listen, man. I appreciate you bringing me here. I appreciate, you young kings and young queens. And the last 3 things that I'm gonna leave y'all with is to always remember, all you guys here, all of you, and I mean, all of you are leaders. All of you are leaders. All right? Always remember that. And all of you in this room have a purpose. All of you. How do I know that? Because y'all woke up this morning and y'all sitting in front of me. A lot of people didn't make that wake up call. So y'all all have a purpose. And last but not least, with everything going on, it's like we see on the daily. So many young brothers and young sisters, crashing out senselessly over 5 minutes of anger. Please don't let no one tell you different, man. Saying no and walking away is not weakness, man. It's power. It means they choose you in your future. Thank you guys for your time, man. Thanks for the food.